Hey, I fixed the buttons last week. Look at that. Everything's live. The mics are working. All it took was me
Was
finally
stuff
caving.
broken?
Yeah.
Things are broken, Chris? You never have anything broken, ever.
Well, it breaks all the time because I don't actually know what I'm doing. I've just been faking it for 14 years.
That's called faking it till you making it. When do you expect to
Make
it?
Well, at our current progression, we should have 100,000 subscribers by about 2070.
I should be alive then, I think.
So I don't even know if they still give out those YouTube play buttons for 100,000 anymore. Those might only be for 1 million now, but that's the future.
Well, let's see. I mean,
You're not making, are you going to make it to 2070? Do you want to make it to 2070?
I'd be 85. I'd be 85. That's possible. That's for sure possible.
It's possible. You're right. It's possible.
And who knows?
I
Like
mean,
scientific advancements could be even crazier between now and then. I don't know.
Society
True
aspects
story.
might make it really insane to make it that far. You might be dead, in like 2 years. Who knows?
See, that dives into a little bit of an issue of if we can figure out how to make people live to 150. We're not going to be retiring at 65 anymore. We're going to be retiring at 125 because the society just can't continue to run.
Well,
if we're all living to 150 and not working for more than half of our life.
There is that problem, which is massive, to be clear. There's also the environmental problem where the world probably can't handle 16 billion people on it because they're not dying anymore.
But at that point, you wouldn't have kids till you're like 50 or 60, right?
Well,
like everything just kind of slows
we should probably
down.
talk to women about the fact of, is that going to be physically possible to have children, as that was the point. I don't think human advancement's gotten that far.
I mean, do you just slow down growth entirely at that point where maybe you're an adolescent for the first 30 years of your life instead of the first 15?
Are you telling me I don't have to go to high school until I'm like this age right now? That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, but do you slow down your mental development at the same time, or are you mentally acute?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more teenagers will die at like 28 if they're still doing teenager shit for the extension of like 15 years rather than like 5. They're probably going to die off pretty quick.
But your body is still in that teenager state at that point. I don't know.
But like you do so much risky, stupid shit. Like I packed a lot of stupidity into like 15 to 19. If you extrapolate that, the chances I die by doing 3 times worth the amount of stupid shit, I might not make it.
That is just law of averages at that point.
Right.
Like, you survived. You only have like let's say you have 150 things you can survive. You did 60 of those 150 things. And so if you just had more time.
If I did 180 dumb things, the one time where I'm 17 and drunk and jumping over a fence and I didn't land on my neck and break it, I landed on my shoulder. Those other times I might land on my neck and I might break my neck and die.
And get fucked at that
exactly.
point.
And then you have to sit and I'm like, in a wheelchair for what that equates to 130 years or whatever you were going with.
No, we have to kill you off at that point.
Yeah. Then you have no choice.
Yeah, then you just kill it. Oh God, we're getting into a really dark.
I needed to go there.
So overpopulation won't be a problem because Darwinism will still exist despite human advancement, and we'll just take care of it that way.
That's a legitimately fun essay perspective of you can extend human lifespans, but you're going to thin out the population because of stupidity. It will still exist.
And then Mitch McConnell can be a senator until he's 150. Won't that be fun?
What?
He'll die before that happens. So it's
way to kill the mood, Chris.
Yeah, way to go.
We're actually talking about something completely different this week. First of all, welcome to Gray Areas, July 1st, 2025, episode 679. I didn't do the intro, so it's my fault. But we are here. Dave is back. Next week, we will not be here, but we will be in the sense that Cody and I already recorded an episode for next week, so that will finish off the wrestling tier list then. I actually thought it went pretty well, and there's some, I won't say divisive stuff, because Cody and I mostly agreed overall, but you might be surprised where a couple people end up because it'll be different than you expect. So next week, that'll still be on the air at the usual time, 8 p.m. It just won't be live, and unfortunately, it means you can't join in, but you can still watch. You can do that part.
You can be a voyeur at that point.
Sure. Maybe I'll watch myself. Just kidding. I'll probably just be pulling into Portland at that time, but still.
Speaking of Portland, Chris hates a certain basketball team in the world.
I do.
They're called the Portland Trailblazers. And they just got rid of a player that everyone said that the Suns screwed up in getting rid of. And I laughed hard at that. I laughed hard at the fact they got rid of DeAndre Ayton for literally nothing. They're just like, we don't want you. Go away.
What an amazing trade that turned out to be, by the way. Bro, how all the pieces trickled out so soon. It's really funny.
It's lose-lose on every portion.
Right.
Here.
The Blazers are still going to say that they won that and the Lillard trade just because they have some draft capital and they have Kamara. But, like, do they? Are they happy?
I mean, Kamara seems heavily overrated by a lot of people. I'm not saying he's not good, but he's heavily overrated. Like, he's not that good. He's not an all-star.
He's great value for a second-round pick. And the Blazers did well to make sure that he was included in that deal when it could have just been considered a throw-in piece. So I'm not trying to take away from it, but you're right. I mean, he had games where he shot like 2 for 15, and everybody's like, but his defense. And I'm like, you know who else was good at defense? Andre Roberson, and he would not last in today's NBA. I'm not saying that this is that. I'm just saying that unless he finds some more offense, which he's going to still do, he's not going to be good enough to be a starter long-term in this league.
Yep. And it's again, the NBA fan, like, I love your byline you have here up at the top here, is about no wonder the NBA was on TNT for so long. They know drama. Like, the NBA knows how to sell this drama, and the fans know how to buy into this drama so much by making things just so much more emotional than they probably need to be. Like, a lot of these moves that GMs make, I think, are pretty pragmatic and logical. And yet it's like, oh, DeAndre Ayton sucks because he can't do X, Y, Z. It's like, well, yeah, he wasn't producing for the amount of money he's getting paid, so they got rid of him. That's really what it is at that point, right?
I think the perfect example is the infamous story about him not making it to a game because the roads were too icy, which is easy to make fun of and hold against him. And Lord knows, as former Ayton supporters turned haters, we would like to jump onto that. The truth is, the roads were extremely icy. Portland doesn't get storms like that, does not salt their roads, does not have the infrastructure to deal with it. And the Blazers also sent people out from the team trying to get him to the arena, and it was impassable. So, yes, it fits a pattern of him not really caring enough and not having the right priorities. But in that particular case, I don't know that it was his fault. But it's an easy meme, and it builds drama, so people latch onto it.
Yep. It's the same thing that everyone latches onto, like any move LeBron makes or says, where he says that he doesn't want to be judged solely by rings, but then he also cares about championships. So which is it, LeBron? It's like, well, yeah, of course he wants to win championship. What the fuck do you think he plays for? But he doesn't want his entire legacy to be built in the fact that he doesn't have as many rings as MJ. So I don't know. I get where he's coming from, but people can't think, critically. So that's my rant.
We went for what was expected to be a pretty busy offseason. Shams warned in advance that was going to be the case, and we weren't really sure how because there's not that many free agents these days, which goes back to what we talked about a couple months ago with second apron, new CBA, all that jazz. But it turns out there was still plenty of player movement because trades can happen amidst free agency, whether that's sign-in trades or just existing players being traded. And now all of a sudden you had big stuff happening, like Damian Lillard getting booted from the Milwaukee Bucks because Miles Turner wanted to play there. Miles Turner, of course, is doing that because the Pacers are scared of the luxury tax. Their owners are cheap, and Tyrese Halliburton is going to miss all of next season now, so they don't want to get hit with the repeater tax. So now they're taking a finals team and dismantling a key piece. But the Bucks are also hanging on by a thread. They're seeming to wanting to appease Giannis by giving him another piece that can help for now. Because, yeah, they could trade him and get a haul, but that would be admitting defeat and like basically committing to a 5-year rebuild. So all of these moves, that's just one move, and all of them are fascinating. Even if it doesn't involve a current star moving, you have all the stuff with the Mavericks and Flag. You have all the stuff with the Nuggets and the pretty smart moves they've made to finagle the second apron and keep Jokic happy. All the teams operating in this current landscape is made for extra drama, and not all of it was manufactured. Some of it was just like new hoops to jump through.
Yeah. I want to go through that Bucks situation and Pacers situation more than anything. I guess starting with the Pacers. To me, the craziest part of all of that is that if they lose Game 6, this entire offseason is 1,000% different from them.
Right.
Because Halliburton comes back. How do you possibly sell the fans on, you were 1 game away, 2 games away from winning the finals, but we're just going to sell off the team because of money? Like, that's a much harder sell than Halliburton's going to miss the entire year, and that's that's an easier sell almost, I think.
It's fucked up in a way because I don't really mind it in the sense of they're being a little realistic. Like, this might have been, there was like a fluky run in a way. And they're not tripling down on making long-term mistakes by saying, well, we were so close. It's like, you're right. They were so close. And they're swaying towards, well, we were so close and that might have been our shot. And that, I'm really curious if Halliburton doesn't tear his Achilles, I'm wondering if, like, do they really approach this any differently? Maybe they get baited into it. They don't have a choice because he's going to play next year. But it really feels like they were like, well, that was it. And we don't want to fall into the hole that XYZ team is currently dealing with during this offseason. And so it's kind of a fascinating thing where it's like, I can't even get that mad. I mean, it sucks that they're cheap and they're one of the smaller market teams. And then I looked at it today and I'm just like, yeah, I guess you're kind of trying to go about this a unique way of you're getting ahead of before you run down the really bad path while we have the second apron. And it's a different approach than most other teams are kind of taking. And I'm really fascinated by how that's going to be in 2 years, because next year's, is what it is. And they can kind of just tank for a year and, do whatever they want and kind of rebuild through that really quickly and then go from there.
I guess that's going to be the question, though, right? Can you just change your culture like that?
Yeah.
Like it's a light switch? And they're going to find out. I guess we're going to see in a live format. But the thing I saw that people were complaining about that I thought was fair is like, okay, but Halliburton's not dead.
Yeah.
Like he is going to come back the following season, hopefully 90-95% of what he was before, because he's relatively young. So then it's like, well, you can't just undo the Turner thing, and you'll have flexibility to make other moves, so they're not done. But it's like, are you going to be able to put together as good of a team 2 years from now as you just had after this move, even if you avoid the repeater tax and the second apron restrictions next season? I don't think so. It's possible, but it seems unlikely. And by the way, the other reason this happens is also because Lillard tears his Achilles. There's no way the Bucks are stretching him if he could play next season. Maybe they move him. Maybe something else happens because they didn't like the fit with Giannis or whatever. But they're making the move from the same perspective. This player is gone all of next season. So the Pacers are looking at it from I guess we're screwed, but their superstar is the one who's out. The Bucks still have Giannis, so they're looking at it from the perspective of, if we don't do something, we're going to lose him. So I guess we have to do this, and then our future is just fucked. It's just interesting how the two, like, it's happened for similar reasons, but they're very different outcomes.
I think I text our group message. It was like, Bucks just were like, let's just accelerate Lillard as an expiring. And I mean, it's stretched over 5 years, but I just felt like, well, if he's a nothing next year, then he's going to be an expiring contract coming off of a tear. So what can we quote unquote get for him? Well, effectively, they just traded Lillard for Turner. It's like they opened the roster spot, they opened the money and the space. So if 2 years from now or a year from now, if you trade Lillard as an expiring for Turner, even though I know money and blah, blah, blah doesn't just like line up, would you do that trade with a diminished Damian Lillard at whatever age he is? And they're just doing it 1 year sooner to give them one more bullet in the chamber to be competitive with Giannis and all that. And then you just stretch that out. You're right. I'm ignoring those next 3 years after year one and year two of Turner's on the roster and Lillard's gone. I'm just pretending those 3 stretch years don't exist. But I guess you're looking at like, well, what is the cap? How much does it go up? We don't know. We have 2 more seasons to figure it out, and we'll see how much Lillard stretch impacts us. Again, you're right. They're kind of making moves just to get the best out of Giannis before they dump him somewhere.
And by the way, the cap went up the maximum this offseason, 10%.
Yeah.
It can't go up more, but if that's the trend, it may happen again the next 2 years where this is going to be less of a percentage hit.
And maybe that's what they look at. It's like, well, the percentage of it and how that works with stretching. And like, I know the Suns are in this position, I think, with Beal, and they already have some stretch money. Blah. I've read all this crap.
Yep.
That gets confusing because it's just a bunch of numbers thrown at you. But I'm like, I respect what the Bucks are trying to do. It's really jarring to see. And then the question is, okay, but who could you have traded Lillard for? Like, with money, with second apron and all that. And I'm like, well, they're having to do a unique thing because you're dealing with the second apron that no one knows how to fucking manage right now. And these 2 teams went in really weird paths that crossed over because a player went from one to the other. And it's just, I'm intrigued because it's just approaches that you've never seen before, and people are having to get creative with new avenues to try stuff out.
I don't want to rehash the whole second apron and thing that we talked about a couple of months ago, but this just makes me hate it all the more because I mentioned it a couple months ago. I just hate the idea that you build a good team, but you can't keep it together because of the rules. Like, it seems insane to me that you build a good team. I don't want it to be where baseball, where you just have, whatever, just everybody just throw money at it. And the teams with the most money can always sign the best players no matter what. You know that a player from the Marlins is, if he's really, really good, comes up through their farm system, he's going to end up on the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Yankees, or something like that. Sucks. I hate that. So salary caps make sense. But the second apron thing, it's like, hey, we got this fantastic team. Oklahoma City, we talked about then. Like, God, there's such a good story, building everything up, drafting well, making smart moves, planning for the future. they're going to have to get blown up in 3 years. Now, maybe they'll win 3 championships in that time. Who knows? They could. But, like, they're going to get blown up because what else are you going to do? I hate it. I hate it so much.
Maybe one of the simplest solutions is if you're going to keep the Supermax, which is its own discussion because that has also failed on some levels. But if you are, it feels like the extra money that the team can give a player for the Supermax should not count against the cap.
Exactly.
Also, I agree. I think that the additional provision that needs to go in there is that if your Supermax player gets hurt, or at least a max player gets hurt, they've got to do something against not count against the apron or something like that. Because when you have to just eat a 45, 60, $70 million contract, just eat it. That's bad enough as is, but to then have it 3 times as much because you're in the second apron, God, teams aren't going to do that. They're not going to want to do that at all.
And with the amnesty thing, we've had guys get their money as they're supposed to get their money. They sign the contract, but it doesn't prohibit you from doing whatever with the cap and things like that. And having some provision, like you just said, like to factor that in, especially as we just had however many Achilles tears and shit injuries. Like, why are you getting punished? It's not like they're going to go find a new $55 million player. No, they just need some space to actually do something. Something so they're not a miserable, blow-it-up franchise that pisses all their fan base off. It's like, because you're right, how do the Pacers sell what they're doing to their fan base? I don't really know. From a non-person who doesn't have an investment into it, I'm fascinated by the project. I can see why you, as a Pacers fan, would be really fucking pissed off about it. And so, yeah, I mean, the Supermax thing and trying to make sure that, like, why are you being penalized for drafting well, scouting talent correctly, and then, oh, well, he needs this much money because it's what we give every single player that is a B plus, basically, is going to get that fat giant contract. It's like, so we drafted 3 B pluses and 1 A, and now we have to give out all this money, and we have 4 players and nobody else. Cool, that really incentivizes scouting and accumulating picks. Maybe they don't want people to accumulate picks then.
And I think the hard part for that too is that people who understand basketball and understand the salary cap and take the time to understand it in the way that even to the levels that the 3 of us understand it. We have varying levels of understanding of the cap here, but we understand it pretty well. I'm thinking like casual people who don't understand the cap, understand that there is a salary cap, but don't understand the implications of an apron, a second apron, don't know what that means. How are you going to sell teams that, hey, I bought into the Pacers this past year because they were a lot of fun to watch. Halliburton hit all these game-winning shots. Man, it sucks they got hurt. Let's see how the rest of the team can do it. And why are they giving away our second best player? Where is he going?
Explain it to an 8-year-old. Like, how miserable is that?
Kind of. But like, even to the extent of, I have seen so many things online where people are like, how could the Suns break up this core? And they show Mikal and Cam and Ayton and stuff like that. And it's like, well, okay, there's a lot of reasons on that, but like, that's how the casual fan sees it, is like, we had this winner and they went away. That's bad. So again, the second apron is making all of these teams have to make tough decisions that we understand because we understand the cap, but casuals won't understand. And that's where you make your money and your margins, is attracting those casuals, right?
And the problem is, this is more than just balance sheets and numbers. It is all that, and that's not very easy for the average fan to digest, as you're saying, but there's like 27 teams trying mostly to win right now. As of last season, I think the only 3 you can say weren't were Portland, Charlotte, and Washington, and Utah did a pretty bald-faced tank job after about the first month of the season. So let's say 26. That's a lot of teams trying to win. The play-in tournament has incentivized that. But in general, teams have a lot of talent across them, which is why they're talking about expansion, and they're looking to make moves to make themselves better. That's a good thing for the league. But if you can't sustain good moves that make you better, how long are teams going to do that if they're going to start paying massive amounts of like triple and quadruple luxury tax because of the new apron provisions? And by the way, it's more complicated than just that. This Supermax is tied to all NBA appearances, defensive player of the year, all NBA, things that writers of the league are voting on. Some of those writers of the league are now also blurring the lines with sports betting. Sports betting is now blurring the lines with players chasing weird prop bets during the game. So all of this is sort of muddying the water in a way that I don't think is good for the league long term. And while they can take all the revenue and run and they can max out all the money as much as possible, you do feel like there's a reckoning coming at some point.
You want to talk about Malik Beasley and that whole thing? Because
sure,
what a story. I mean, there's the clip that's been running around most prominently of him a free throw being made when they're down by 9. The spread is 8.5, and he catches the ball with 4 seconds left, goes down the court unguarded and dunks it with 0.4 left, and looks like relieved, like he was terrified before. Not a great look. Now, all of this is alleged. I'm not gonna like say, yep, he did this for sure, but it looks pretty damning, doesn't it? Like, and still to this day, even the Jonte Porter thing that happened a while ago, I just can't figure out what level of money you are making sports gambling to be involved in that somehow, some way. I'd be fascinated to hear the real story behind all of that.
It feels like uneducation and ignorance that you're going to get away with it. And until we have a handful of guys get caught, and it's like, yeah, well, what's that extra 50 grand, 60 grand? It's like, well, it's a lot of money when you're never going to make any money in the NBA again. It just feels like until you have enough of them get caught and, are made an example of pretty clearly, you're going to think that, well, I mean, again, look, you're an athlete, you think you're the best, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's a lot of psyche shit I could get into of, well, again, Dave, you're like, well, it just seems that simple. Why would you risk it? And a lot of it just feels untouchable. It's like, well, I'm a fucking NBA player. I've made it this far, and I've been the best at this and that. And like having been around athletes at times, man, people in their mid-20s that are athletes are fucking dumb and think they're the greatest thing that God has ever given to the earth. And that has to factor in a little bit of thinking you're invincible to not get caught. And obviously, we've had one. And now I don't remember how far Beasley's goes back and how much that overlaps with Porter. Getting into all that, was he doing it around the same time before Porter had got caught? I think that timeline might make sense. It's like, well, now though you've seen two guys, like, do we have anyone pop up in the next 2 years who would be playing right now who's seen guys get caught? Will that perpetuate still? Probably, because they're still stupid. But right,
there's levels to this. Jonte Porter was a 12th man, and him doing these things in garbage time, while still a horrible look for the league, unethical, et cetera, is very different than a rotation guy like Malik Beasley. And now the question is, well, what happens if it's a starter? What happens if it's, you don't want to even think about the top 5 guys in the league, but let's say, I don't fucking, like Desmond Bane, since he was just moved. What if Desmond Bane gets gotten to by bookies and owes a bunch of money or something, and now there's like a star level player who's trying to influence outcomes? Because Malik Beasley's made $60 million in his career. He was in line to get a 3-year, $42 million extension from the Pistons this offseason, and expected to. Unsurprisingly, the reports are that extension is being held up for the time being. So like the difference there is like Porter made nothing in his career, probably $2 or $2.5 million, which I know is not nothing, to be clear. But in terms of NBA money, that's virtually nothing. So him chasing a few $100,000 made more sense. Beasley has made hundreds or tens of millions of dollars and threw away tens of millions of dollars because of what looks to be at least one $600,000 advance that he couldn't pay back. And now there's another suit today over about $2.5 million from another financial company. That's a lot of money, but again, in terms of NBA players, it's not. If that's what it takes to get to somebody and have them start to look to throw games, boy, is that a slippery slope.
Again, I guess maybe you're right, Cody. It's just I don't understand it. Like you can see the angst on my face when I'm trying to like figure this out. But like 2.5 million, 3 years, 48 million. We're at $16 million a year. Please reconcile. This is just math at this point, right?
And it's shitty because it feels like very NBA lifestyle, which we've seen more of as social media has gotten more widespread. Of the vibe there, again, just feels like a lot of bravado and a lot of shit talking, a lot of one-upsmanship and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, like, well, I have 5 million, but I could have 7.5 million or 8.5 million. I could have more. I could, because I did this or I achieved. And I'm just, I mean, granted, I'm curious how much these guys talk too. Like it, it gets outed. You see clips and all that. Do guys in the league know that such and such might be on the take here and there? Like, I'm really curious if that starts to get around in any way. If people start to be vaguely aware because if guys are starting to talk shit about it, if they're trying to pull it off, or if they're really hush hush, because it just feels like a thing. People are gonna start like, you'll start talking to me like, oh well, I made an extra blank. It's like, well, how'd you do that? Oh, blah blah blah. I didn't even want to get into it. And I don't know. It just feels, to Chris's point, he's made so much money, and if that's really where he was going, but he wanted a yacht or a super yacht or whatever dumb shit purchase you want to have to brag about, and you want it quicker or sooner, you don't want it 5 years from now as your contract stacks up and you make more money. It just seems insane. You're right, but like I don't know how NBA players get paid. I don't know if there's a paycheck How do you get paid every 2 weeks like normal people?
A month. I believe it's a month.
Yeah, it's
once a month.
Well, this month I got my $5 million salary. Well, this month I only got X 100,000, and it went to taxes and it went to agents and all that. I really just need an extra $800,000 right now, and it's like because you're so impatient to wait to get it. We see these big numbers, and I just wonder how many dumb purchases and dumb activity goes into it to where it does incentivize right now I can have that money if I do this one thing.
Don't you just spend $100,000 a year on a financial guy?
Yes.
At that point,
It really you're right.
You got a line of credit, sir.
I mean, like, you're absolutely right. Like, it's so like all the things you're saying as a father who has a budget and works with, like, you understand money. Sure, of course you get it. We're also talking about a shit ton of guys who went to college for 1 year, took basic level classes, got 2.0 GPAs in high school, and did not go to class. And then they get to the NBA and they have shit tons of money that family siphons it off and all this. And it's like, there's no fucking education. I'm assuming the Players Association will try, does the rookie symposium type things and all that. But that 1 week crash course ain't going to undo 19 years of dumbassery.
We would probably...
yes, like Tyler Hero, right?
Sure, yeah. Just the most recent example. We have so many.
Yep.
We would probably be stunned at how many players in the NBA or in sports in general live paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely.
Massive paycheck to massive paycheck, sure.
Stunning.
But to your guys' point, they just never learn how to manage it. And hell, you don't have to be dumb to mismanage money.
Bro,
it's just a different world with a lot of different high-end concepts that if you don't have the understanding of it, you could easily get yourself lost in, especially if you do get a sudden financial windfall and have no idea what to do with it. Because look, I'm not the smartest when it comes to money. Not that I'm stupid or I spend frivolously, but I don't understand the difference between like savings accounts all that well. I don't know the difference between like an IRA and a 401k all that well. I understand them on a base level. I don't know all the intricacies of that, and I think I'm decently smart. Now, if you have the other layers working against you and a bunch of money coming in all out of nowhere and the culture and friends and family come with their hands, like all of it swirls around. I'm not making excuses for millionaires. I'm just saying it's easy for it to get out of hand. God forbid we have something else pushing it out of hand, like sports betting.
I imagine the where I want to live and whatever thing, like how much money gets wasted on where players live when they're never fucking home. Has to be such a dumbass thing that people do when you're renting and you haven't bought a house yet or whatever it might be, and how people get tricked into it or the dumb shit you put in your house. Again, I just think of like MTV Cribs and like players being on it. It's like, oh, cool, you have all this shit like it's The Sims that you bought and randomly threw in there. And it's like, dude, you're home like 4 months of the year. What are you doing? What's the point of all this? And I just have to imagine as more dumb things have been invented, more dumb fucking like societal stuff you can buy is all of a sudden put up on there, and how many things are sitting around a house that you barely use, and how many wasteful purchases there are. There's so many temptations to just waste money on shit. It's great if a guy, if an NBA player or whatever athlete, if all they want to do is go home and fucking play their PlayStation and play online, great. The only purchase you're making is a video game console and online, like paying to play online and a big TV. Holy shit, I'd rather have that player than the guy who wants to go throw money around at a club with alcohol and like paying a $50,000 tab. It's like that tab, funny enough, for guys who are like a millionaire making $2 or $3 million, those giant tabs in like a club in Vegas or whatever, that's like a paycheck.
Just so you know, they just kicked that guy out of Portland. The guy that just wanted to buy a video game system and go home and play video games all the time. I'm
just saying. I just wonder from a player standpoint. It's like, man, I maybe just would rather have that type of player from like my middle level guys and all that. I mean, because to Chris's point he made earlier, we're not talking about stars yet, and we're not falling into that the whole of what is a star doing. Because again, once a guy's making $60 million a year, yeah, that paycheck that's once a month. If you do 12 divided by 60, all of a sudden that paycheck is
$5 million.
$5 million a month. You can do whatever the fuck you want. That's fine. But some of those rookie contracts, like I get it, it's $13 million over 4 years, whatever it might be. You start splitting it down, and then those guys are around the guys who make $25 million, and they try and have a pissing contest to keep up. And I just start to wonder if life actually gets tighter for those guys than you would think otherwise. Which again, I'm not making excuses for a millionaire. But those first 4 years for rookie contracts and shit, and again, Beasley's made what Chris said, $60 million. That's again starting to get the what the fuck are you doing? But I would worry about those guys their first 4 or 5 years of their careers of trying to live the lifestyle And again, some of them who have shoe deals and things like that, they're making plenty more money. But the average 20th overall pick getting stuck into that lifestyle, I worry about.
Yep. It's and I guess there's all sorts of reasons, but the idea of then using gambling to supplement that when you know what the penalty could be and all of it is gone in a moment. That's where Cody got into talking about you think you're invincible. That's the only thing I can think is why someone would do that, because I'm not going to get caught. I know the penalty, but I'm not going to get caught, so it's fine. I hope they catch them all, because that deterrent has to
exactly.
It's the only thing you can do.
And that's how you make examples of guys, and you start being like, no, your career's literally going to end. And how many guys will still try and go play overseas or whatever and play leagues like that will accept them? I don't know. But that money ain't the same, and that vibe and lifestyle isn't the same. Because you're right. I mean, and the problem is, again, we can go back to, it's not like the league's helping when they're fucking advertising this to their own players as much as fucking possible. We get annoyed with those commercials. You think that they're not also dealing with it? Like, you guys aren't paying attention to the ads and the revenue and all this shit that is coming in to the league because of gambling. It's like, well, if the league and the owners are getting fat chunks of money off of DraftKings and FanDuel, why don't I get some of that money as well? Which, again, the cap's going up, and indirectly that all ties together.
PRI is going up, yep.
But they don't, again, dive into the, well, cool, in 5 years, the cap might be this much more when my contract's up. They're waiting to see the FanDuel investment money, blah, 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 for 5 years when their contract's up. They want it now. And again, if we've caught one, maybe two, there's more. And again, I'm curious, like with AI and stuff like that, if you start like running AI through box scores and play-by-play of certain things, you're going to start catching, because that's how the books are doing it, you start catching irregularities. And I wonder when we hit the big pop of it.
Well, it's kind of already happening to a certain extent, and the case study for that is Terry Rozier, who has not been implicated for throwing away games or fixing stats in certain ways, but was so bad last season that people couldn't help but scrutinize his play, because it looked like he was trying to throw things for gambling purposes, because he was maybe the worst player in the league, and there's so many different clips of him just doing baffling, god-awful things on the court. So far, the NBA's own investigation has not revealed anything in the way it did with these other two, so maybe it's just nothing. But the fact that that became a question is also a problem for the league, because that's a season-long trend where people went, yeesh, God, he doesn't look very good. What's going on with him? God forbid we start doing that at like a micro level, like a game-to-game level. Because, I mean, who among us hasn't seen, I mean, Devin Booker's had his share of like 4 for 18 games. Are we going to start asking him if he's on the take after the game in the press conference because he had one bad game?
It's tough with the schedule. It gets lost. Like, the NFL has 17 games. It would stand out quite a bit if you tanked a game in the NFL, because there's only 17 of them and we have a lot of eyes on them. NBA games, bad teams, not on national TV, on regional broadcasts and all that stuff, 82. I feel like there's like still a window there to kind of hide some of these weird, quirky things, because stuff can be an anomaly after of that many times. Baseball I've wondered about. I mean, there's so many fucking baseball games. How are we not having stuff get shady there? But it's harder to impact a baseball game with that many people. It just feels like basketball and hockey are the perfect like ones to have this happen, given the way it shows on TV, how the schedule is and all of that, and how much you can still impact a game. And the problem is, like NHL, you still have line changes and you change in and out. Basketball runs into you're on the court for half the game. Even as a role player, you get 24 minutes, you're on the court for half the game. You can make an impact. Unfortunately, probably too easy.
And hockey has less stats too. Yes. So basketball really is the prime one because of the proliferation of prop bets. Like, okay, you need 8 rebounds. Like, are you going to see players like let one slip through their fingers because they're at 7 type of deal? Like, it is tough because you don't necessarily have to throw games. Like, that's the big thing that I've always thought. You don't have to even fix the point spread, which is where I feel like Malik Beasley got screwed over. Like, he screwed himself over in something like that, where you're working with the point spread. No, you don't have to throw the point spread. You just have to not hustle after that rebound as hard. And you still hustle, it's not as hard. And that's the difference.
And hockey's tough, because hockey's only stats are like assists, shots on goal. That's about all we can prop bet on. Really, a goaltender is really the only one that could really impact a game for hockey, because you can let some stuff slip through and get the overs a lot easier. But that's about the only thing like that is really easy to impact. To your point, over-unders, hockey over-unders are like The spread is 1.5. Over-under's like 6.5. There's not much variation there. It's tight. Basketball is back and forth, and your over-under can go up to whatever it is, but your spread across 200 points is 8.5 points in games. And it's like, boy, that 8.5 points is easy to manipulate when there's 200 points scored.
Well, and there's one other layer here too, which is a goalie can only afford to be soft and throw in easy goals so often before they're going to get benched or cut. Because at a certain point, you can't take the high side of it and count on you performing better than expected.
Yeah, that's
you can only throw it. Whereas to Dave's point, if it is rebounds, you can still play your ass off. You can still try and help your team win. You're not trying to subvert the outcome. You're not playing against your own squad. But that one stat, you could be, I just didn't get enough rebounds tonight. I had 21 points. I had 7 assists. Like, I really contributed, but I just didn't happen to get enough of those. That's weird.
And I've noticed, like, for hockey, we can't bet under on shot attempts. We can bet 1+, 2+, 3+. You can only you bet it to go over that number or higher, and that's how the same game parlays work. Football, you can do over under rushing and things like that, but again, I talk about football. I just think it's harder to do it. Basketball might have to consider going to a model of, do they get 4 over? Yes, you just bet that it's going to go over. Otherwise, you don't bet it. There is no, if they got under 4, there's no bet to make. You just either get it or you don't. So sure, you can incentivize hustling more and trying to run after every rebound. Oh no, we've incentivized guys to try harder on the court. You could surely bet on that, but you can't guarantee you're going to get that rebound unless the other 9 guys on the court are like, no, we all bet on him to get 5, so we have to let him get every rebound. That takes a lot more coordinated, fucked up effort. I do wonder if some of the books start to shift away from the over-under on stats and just do the, will they get 1, will they get 2, will they get 3, which really in the big picture, like, is that just such a fucking problem? Like, is that such a bad thing to be putting in the first place for betting?
Is DeAndre Ayton incentivized for some reason to get more than 10 rebounds a night financially, a top 25 player in the league? All he cared about was his second contract. Money clearly matters to him. He's even considering, reportedly, the Warriors over the Lakers because they have more of their mid-level exception available, even though he's still going to get paid by Portland. So if it really is a financial motivator for somebody to try harder, as fucked up as that is that really the worst thing in the world, to your point?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, sure, it makes more, maybe there's more effort, and it's really going to be funny if we see like 8 guys diving for rebounds with like a 20-point game with 3 minutes left. Will be really funny and really obvious, but at least we're not having guys tank it down. And again, that's how you catch guys out of the gambling on the games or whatever anyway. But that's a lot different than, like, that's a bit different than manipulation. And so I have wondered since we did same games and stuff like that, and they've gotten really popular on every book, because I'll point this out, Vegas doesn't let you do that. When you're in Nevada, you can't bet on same game parlays of individual player stuff. That is state by state that have made those choices to allow those type of bets. And that is, I mean, we've already talked about in Arizona easing back, and I think we did, easing back over-unders on college players. I don't believe we're allowed to do that in college sports anymore already because we got iffy about it. And thankfully, the legislation in Arizona was like, yeah, that's a good call. You might make a little bit less money, but you're saving a lot of integrity of a lot of things. And again, it's going to be on DraftKings and FanDuel and all the other ones, and I guess BetMGM and all that, to decide in certain states do they want to ease back off of those under offers, which again is interesting because most people like to bet overs. I think the consensus of the public likes to bet overs on everything, and sharps bet on unders a lot, which is why I wonder if that's why they're going to cling to it a bit.
Could be.
Yeah.
It's a
we
mess.
Talk about the Suns next?
Yeah, we might as well talk Durant. We had mentioned at the end of last week's episode that we would talk about it eventually, and I'm sure Sean has thoughts on it, but we'll also go over the Suns going into next season. So we can even talk about some of the other moves, but primarily Durant also led to some follow-up moves and some second-round picks moving around and whatnot. I don't have a ton of analysis of this. People talked about what's the Kevin Durant era look like in the rearview mirror for the Phoenix Suns, and it's like there wasn't one. That's the simplest answer to that. Did I enjoy watching Kevin Durant as a Sun? Yeah, it was kind of cool to see him up close and personal. Obviously, I knew Kevin Durant very well, but to see him on a game-to-game basis, even at this stage of his career, was a lot of fun. And especially that first season or so, at the end of the season where he was traded, and most of the following season, him and Booker were a fun duo. And when you surround them with the right pieces, the team had some success. And then everything started going south after the first acquisition. And at that point, there was no way whatsoever to ever get anything close to what the Suns traded for him. That was probably impossible from the start because it was going to be 3 years later, less time on the contract. So what they got from Houston wasn't phenomenal, and I think people tricked themselves into thinking that it was going to be more than that.
What they did with it was good. I think overall I think they made the best of it with what they could. It's another, stake in the heart of the idea of the super team, of that being the path to victory. How many super teams have we seen fail? How many combinations of players? And you're like, oh man, how could they possibly lose? And they fall flat on their face. It's just another instance of that happening. I just hate the fact that it happened to our team, my favorite team, at the exact same moment that spending a lot of money became the worst possible thing you could do when we got an owner with a shit ton of money. So all of it sucks together. Durant, man, we mentioned loved watching him play here. I did love watching him play. The couple game winners he had was just phenomenal to see. Going to a couple games, seeing him play in person was great. I'm not going to miss the circus that came around him, the online circus specifically. The idea of the KD stan, as they call him, where they follow a player to whatever team they're on, is mind-boggling to me. I could never be a player fan, and I don't understand how people are that way.
It's the NBA personality shit. I swear, it's the only league that feels like it can do that. It's not fun.
It's terrible.
It's not fun. I mean, I'm. It's hilarious to see that with like Laker fans online right now with LeBron versus Luka people, and how that's just again, it's already a bandwagon fucking franchise to begin with. So that whole thing. I feel like the best I can comp to like your experience with Durant is like Manny Ramirez being a Dodger. Holy shit, was that super fucking cool for my 2 months? And it was amazing and everything was going great. And then it fell apart and the whole Manny Wood thing just went to shit so quickly between testing positive for steroids and getting suspended, being hurt, being fat and lazy and out of shape. That high, that initial high, and you're like, wow. And again, the Dodgers gave up a lot for him in comparison to like the residual part for the Suns. But like you had to buy like a brand new car and you drove it off the lot and immediately it depreciates in value how much as soon as you have a hold of it and you drive it. It's like, well,
and you hit a tree,
yeah,
right? Immediately, like a month later, right?
And it's like, well,
pretty much is the
well, shit, there. Like, and it's like again, I it sucks. And it's easy for me to say as not a fan of the team to be like, I'm glad the franchise took a shot. And
yeah,
and I don't mean if the Beal thing wasn't the Beal thing, I don't feel like people who have any brain intelligence about the fucking NBA would look at the Durant and say, what a stupid mistake right off the bat. It's like, no, it really it wasn't. And picks are picks, and it just takes you some time to get through those drafts. And residually, it is what it is, but you should have made that move. Again, I still stand by you should have done the Beal move, but at least people are going to sit on the Beal thing and shit on that for other reasons. And you're right. It's like you weren't going to get back the deals that people are idealizing. The market seemed to be, again, with the way Durant operates, the market was going to be the market he wanted to go to, more or less. And you're going to be capped on how many teams were going to be interested to make those moves. Honestly, I think in a way you're lucky that like Giannis wasn't fully on the market in the first place to be a competing trade and drive down. Because what if Houston trades for Giannis? Like, what do you getting for Durant from another team?
I don't think they will now, given the Durant move and the other moves they've made with Finney-Smith, and like they've gone all in this offseason. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. And given that OKC exists, good on them for making this type of a push. I've always said it, and I'll keep saying it. I love teams moving to win, even when it looks like the odds are against them. By all means, the more teams are competitive, the better. I will say this. The problem with this was an implied no-trade clause versus an actual no-trade clause. We will probably never see another no-trade clause again in the NBA because the Beal contract has been such a debacle. But Durant also had leverage in his situation without a formal no-trade clause, because without him being willing to extend some of the trade offers that were out there that people got attached to, like the one from Minnesota, which was a much better package overall, were never actually real if he didn't want to play there. And it wasn't even just a matter of him wanting to play there. They also needed to be willing to extend him. So it wasn't even just, well, it's like a one-season rental. It's like it's a one-season rental for a team he wants to go to versus a one-season rental for a team he doesn't versus a team that would extend him. And, of course, the offers are going to be worse if you're getting 1 year of Kevin Durant instead of 3. So that makes it tough. It's a harsh reality for Suns fans to swallow, and that's not me glazing the organization like, oh, yeah, they did the best they could considering. They did the best they could considering it was still not very good, but the subsequent moves they've made since then, particularly with what they did at the draft, have at least made me more optimistic than I was a week ago. Does that mean I think this team's in great shape? No, but I'm at least a little bit more excited to watch them going into next season than I was at the end of last season, where it was like, this team is listless, it has no youth, it has no energy. Now at least we have some of those players, some versatile young wings. Are all of them going to pan out and live up to this hype? Absolutely not. 2 of them are second-round picks, for God's sake. But the fact that there's a chance of any of them doing it, and it's not like the mid-2010s when it was lottery tickets and hoping. It's not like, well, Dragon Bender's going to be a franchise savior. We don't need him to be franchise saviors. We need him to be NBA rotation players. That's it.
It's the biggest thing that blows my mind is continuing to hear from Suns fans in my online and in my own life where they yearn for, well, we shouldn't have made the Durant trade. Like Cody said, that was a dumb move. No, it wasn't a dumb move. Like Chris just said too, you always want teams that go for it. I am happy the Suns went for it. I hate the result, but if you put me back in February of 2023 again, when Chris called me at 11:30 at night when I was about to go to sleep and said, we just got Kevin Durant, the excitement I felt in that moment, I think I'd do it all over again. I really would. And hope at that point. You just have to take your shot. And the Suns did, and it sucks that it didn't work, I guess, is the best thing
we don't have to relitigate this to death. We've had a half dozen or more episodes that have talked about it in various Suns casts and whatnot. But the simple fact is this, and I need Suns fans to understand this. The team that you pine for that made the finals in 21 did not exist when the Kevin Durant trade happened. Forget after the Kevin Durant trade. At the time of dealing for Kevin Durant, Ayton had already checked out. Chris Paul was already falling off a cliff. All these things were already happening. You had Cam and Mikal both coming up on extensions. You can argue that both have been worthwhile. They're both pretty solid contracts, especially because Cam took a step last year. But regardless, all these factors were swirling around the team that had already, like, the decision about the Kevin Durant trade happened 2 years prior when they didn't offer Ayton an extension the first time it was available. That's the action that started all of these events in motion. And whether you agree with them or not, we had already gone through about half of those by the time we traded for Kevin Durant. You still make the Durant trade 100 times out of 100. As much as I loved that finals team and the vibes they had, those vibes were already gone. There was already some more infighting. Chris Paul, as good as he was, forget the physical decline. Every team that's had him also has the mental side fall off a cliff because it's hard to be a teammate of Chris Paul's for several years in a row. He's an asshole. In the beginning, that really pushes people to be better. Year 5, you start to tune him out a little bit. And that's what they understand, that I still would welcome him back on a minimum right now, by the way, because it's still a fresh sitting. The point is, it's easy to look back at that finals team. Yeah, that was the best it was in recent memory. But that team was already gone. And trading for Kevin Durant didn't change that.
Yep. And again, and if you look at the Beal trade at that point, man, I still feel like almost like it was a no-brainer except for the no trade clause. That's really the only thing that has really fucked us in this sense, is that no trade clause. And that is, I feel it wasn't that bad of a move in where we were in that day. But
Jordan Poole was not the answer. Jordan Poole had a horrendous 23-24. He was better last year. How much better will he be now? I don't know. We'll see. Seems like a guy I wouldn't want to bank my future on. If the idea was keep Chris Paul and let him expire, because the thing that everybody kept saying at the time of the Beal trade was, oh, they should have just gotten more depth. And it's like, you can't just fucking say that. Who are you targeting with that
Where
depth?
are you going to go get depth pieces from?
If you're trading Chris Paul...
I'll play.
Yeah.
I'll go play with you. Sign me up.
Like, for veterans minimum, I'm in. Because it's not just...
I'm all good.
If you're trading Chris Paul for depth, who are you trading him to for what? And if you're going to let him walk, you then waste that last season because he can barely stay on the floor. So there's one season of Booker Durant gone. Then you have to find free agent signs, and as we talked about at the very beginning of this, the free agent pool fucking sucks. So it's not just as simple as, oh, just do this. Okay, what specific moves would you make?
Well, you needed Jimmy Butler to be really grumpy and angry about his life a year or two earlier, and then maybe you could have done that, and then that would have all triggered. You needed Jimmy to get pissed sooner, not later, and the Heat to fall apart, and then maybe you could... It's like, yeah, I mean, like, what guys who have been moved in the last, 2 years would you have said to me, like, oh, well, that's who we should have held out for? It's like, well, held out for, or you needed them available when Chris Paul was an asset that could be moved in that amount of time. Like,
And Butler was good for the Warriors. They went 22-5 with him after the
exactly
trade or something. And then when Steph Curry got hurt, that team died.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if that happens with Booker or Durant when they bring him here, or maybe even if they didn't, I mean, the three of them could have been healthy. We still might have lost. But the point is, if anything happens like that, a star goes down, you're done. And now the Warriors are basically all in on that. Now they have this out where it's like they all expire at the same time. So if it doesn't work, they can let Steph ride off into the sunset and figure it out.
Welcome to an expansion franchise,
I guess. But like, I don't know. All I'm saying is like, I'm not thrilled with where we are either. Dave put it well. It's like I would make the same moves even knowing that like they didn't work because they were the right moves at the time. And the Beal one is sort of stunning because even if you were nobody said it was going to be bad at the time. You could be on varying levels of thinking it was going to work or not, but nobody was like, yeah, that's a terrible trade for the Suns. Now, in retrospect, everybody piles on because it didn't work, but they didn't think that at the time. So,
but you mentioned something interesting, Chris, going forward. I'm excited about this team going forward. Are these rookies going to pan out? No. Is Malo? God, I don't even know how to pronounce the name. Probably Malak. Damn it. I am still learning. I apologize. I'm a bad host. Is he going to pan out and be the superstar that people say? He's raw, that's for sure. Super raw. Could he be really good? Yeah, he could be. Who the hell knows? You don't know what these types of things. But that level of intrigue, that level of hope, that level of mystery is going to be so much more fun to watch than watching Bradley Beal sit out half the games and Durant score 30 but look listless while he does it and have the bench players not hustle after. It's going to be at least more fun to watch, even though we might win the exact same number of games.
I was going to say, what? I mean, yeah, but you're going to win. You might win the exact number of games, but be putting a step forward to the future. What would your over under, like if it was set with like run it back basically roster versus what you guys have done so far? How many wins? What's the over under win total? How far has it dropped from the moves you've made? Like, would you assume that they were going to be 45, 46, and now it might be like 41, 4. Like I'm just curious how
it's not much.
Like would you rather have a year of 5 more wins this upcoming year while Durant expires and you're cascading towards no real planned out future, or getting started now and accumulating some picks and trying to find some rotation guys in the second round and trying to actually have a fucking center? I'm just curious like what the difference would have been of that Suns team versus the Suns team you have now. And if they both played the same schedule, what would the difference really look like? And is that difference worth cashing in those, like the lack of future going forward?
We filled some needs in this span. We have like 6 shooting guards and 4 centers and not a lot else. We have a journeyman who did play well last year as basically the only point guard on the roster at this moment, because Morris is not signed.
Yeah.
That's not great. You know, it's not great at all.
You don't say.
Yeah.
I mean, again, when you have X number of dollars being a black hole of contributing, I don't know, not a lot. Well, it's just going to happen with you're playing basically with a handicap of the cap space right now. Like realistically, that's where you're at, and that's just what you have to deal with.
There's some good young talent, some lengthy athletic defenders, which is what you really needed to surround Booker and Durant with. Of course, that ship has sailed. There's still the Bradley Beal situation. I don't know how you play Beal, Green, and Booker together. You know, there's issues facing this team still, and the other issue is going to be they're not very good, and they're in a stacked conference. So, like, it'd be foolish. But I think there's a chance they could compete for a play-in spot next year. That's all they did this year, but it felt miserable. At least next year, like you said, if they're trending more in the right direction, which is anywhere that's not down, then that would be a win. And if they can do the same thing the season after that, because eventually you will be able to do something with Bradley Beal. A trade, or next season you can stretch him because then it's a smaller hit across the years, so it would fit underneath the threshold. There will be some options eventually, one way or the other. You're not stuck here forever. Yeah, you don't have draft capital for the most part, but they've shown they can do well in the late first and second rounds. And I'm saying that knowing that all of those picks from this year might all somehow not pan out. That's possible. But the fact remains the team can work in the margins, and the picks are gone. And they're not coming back unless you trade Devin Booker for them. And if you do, I'm not even sure that helps because you still have other picks tied up in swaps and other arrangements to the point where it's like, I think you just got to take your medicine. I'd rather watch Devin Booker, the Sun, even getting paid $70 million than tank for 6 or 7 years, hoping for a lottery ticket that we never found in the 2010s because even Ayton didn't pan out as that.
Yeah, you don't compound your losses. And that's what I think I feel like you don't try and chase the victory that might have been your peak, and you shouldn't compound your losses when you're doing this. That's how you get into fucking hell. And that's how you get into I don't know, being the Charlotte Hornets. It just feels like this perpetual, like 30-something win mediocrity type shit that lasts too long. And you guys are too historic of a franchise to be put in that position, especially when you were already there for way too long anyways. And again, wherever you want to rank Devin in like the NBA's rank of best players right now, he's still a generational talent in the sense of the fuck are you going to get another player like that just to just walk in the door in the draft all of a sudden? It doesn't fucking happen that often.
No, we got really lucky that we did.
You're lucky to get a B+ superstar level in the NBA, which is again what we go back to the fucking second apron of. You shouldn't get punished if you find B+ level fucking players. That's the whole point of what we were saying.
At 15 in the draft, especially at that low of a level in the draft.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. I don't think I even like think about that, like where it happened.
Yeah, Booker was picked 15. Out of all of the tanking we did in the 2010s, our best player was picked when we actually had a good season. And when we tanked, we got Josh Jackson and Devin and Dragon Bender and Marquise Chris.
Alex Len,
yeah. Some of these names I want to like purge from my mind. But
it sounds like you kind of have, yeah.
Some of them, but I hope that the Suns can run something like in the next few years along what the Miami Heat have done, where it's like, hey, we're always competitive. Maybe we'll make a run, but we're always at least in the playoffs and competitive. That used to be the purgatory where it's like, hey, if you're an 8 seed, you're going to suck. Like, you're never going to get better. It's changing nowadays, and I feel like in that sense, maybe that's where the second apron helps, because you're not going to be stuck behind these generational teams for years and years and years like you were in the 2010s.
I think we just saw it with the Pacers are the ideal scenario, but it's like, I don't think it's that out of the question that the 4-5 seed to make the finals anymore. I don't think that's like crazy thought now. Especially as Achilles are blowing out everywhere, you know.
I mean, the Heat that Dave already mentioned, it did it. Like, it's definitely, it used to be if you weren't a top 3 seed, you didn't make the finals, and that's changing quickly. I mean, hell, we've had a different champion each of the last 7 seasons. Like, parity is massive in the league right now. I think parity is good overall. I think we've almost gone too far, and that was almost accidental because of all the salary cap implications we've talked about. Look, Phoenix is a destination much like Miami, and that's not me being a homer. People clearly like to play in Phoenix, and people clearly like to play with Devin Booker. He's attracted players to come here in a way that we did not have in the 2010s because we were a joke. It was different with Nash because people wanted to play with him specifically, but even then, we didn't exactly attract a ton of free agents specifically. Like, yeah, okay, Jason Richardson, cool, fine. But, like, in general, you have somebody who's a destination player and in a destination city. You hope that if you can get out from this morass and not further double down on any mistakes, that you can find a window out of this in the next 3 or 4 years while Booker still has the tail end of his prime in him. That's what you have to hope for. That's what we have. That's what we can cling to right now.
Yep. And hope we make a Mavericks type run. But, Chris, have you considered LeBron James for Bradley Beal trade? Have you considered that?
Well, I mean,
because that could happen.
Damian Lillard is a big Booker fan. So, you know, if we want to just take a swing at that, he's already getting paid by the Bucks. So if we want to just bank on 2 years from now, you know, sign him for as little as possible, maybe a mid-level exception, and stretch Beal. And I don't know what that team's going to do exactly, but that's a lot of talent to bring in for $5 million. So, like, you know, anything could happen. I mean, sure, Lillard will be 37 or something, but it doesn't matter. It's fine.
The hope that kills you, right? In these things, like, we hope that the players are going to work out for the Suns. You hope that somehow some magical trade is going to happen. And even then, when the magical trade does occur, like it did with Kevin Durant, you hope that it'll work out, and it doesn't all the time. It's a bit of a crapshoot in so many ways, but I guess that's why we keep watching, right?
We root for the logo on the front of the jersey, not the names on the back.
Yep.
Even when it comes to Devin Booker. But, you know, people are like, oh, I'm going to stop being a Suns fan. I'm done with this franchise. It's like, it's been 58 years. You might as well fucking strap in.
Yep.
All right. That's the end of this episode. As I mentioned at the top, next week there's no live show, but there will still be an episode that goes online at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night, where Cody and I will finish the last part 4 of the wrestling tier list, if you've been following that one. A couple doozies in the end there where we're not sure where to put a couple folks. And then we also revised a few things at the tail end. Then after that, we should be back on the 15th with another episode. I'm not even going to try and promise a game show because I'm going to be out of town for a week.
Won't be here. I won't be
here. That's right.
Here.
Dave's
so
gone for a while
anyways.
Everybody. That might be at the end of July or something. I don't remember. But regardless, that's the end of this episode. Thank you for watching, listening. In between episodes, you can find us at grayareas.live or youtube.com/@grayareaslive. We'll see you next week.